Hello, welcome to Reel Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. I'm pleased to have with me on the show, back again, Sarah Evans. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thanks, Angela. I love being here and doing this with you.
Well, thanks for joining me. And Sarah and I were talking about possible ideas, and we decided to do something for Black History Month. Even though it should be year-round Black History, we're of course celebrating Black History Month in February, and we wanted to do something a little different. We decided to look at movies that are based on true stories. Although I fudged on one, which we'll talk about first, but based on true stories, but they're fictional movies, so not documentaries. That would have been fun to do too. Maybe we'll do that next year, but because there's a lot of great documentaries. And one of the things we decided to make a qualifier is that we decided to do based on true stories, but no movies about slavery, because there's a lot of those, and those are important movies and very good. But there's so much emphasis on slavery in Black history. We wanted to do more of a variety of true stories based on Black experience that are not focused on slavery, and maybe some that are even a little fun or joyful in between. So, does that sound about right, Sarah? Did I get that description okay?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, the Renaissance, our first film was my pick, Watermelon Woman from 1996 by Cheryl Dunn. I wanted to review this, even though it's technically not based on a true story, but it has elements of things based on history. It was really just an excuse to make Sarah watch this movie more than anything. It's a romantic comedy drama. It was written, directed, and edited by Cheryl Dunn, a true independent movie. It's considered the first feature film ever directed by a Black lesbian. And in the movie, she plays a character named Cheryl, so based on herself, a young Black lesbian working a day job in a video store while trying to make a film about Faye Richards, a Black actress from the 30s known for playing a stereotypical, what they called mammy roles, relegated to Black actresses during this period. Faye Richards is a fictional character, but Cheryl Dunn actually so Cheryl Dunn was working in a video store and in real life and trying to get a movie made, and she was really into movies from the 20s and 30s, just like watching anything that had any Black person in it from that period. In real life, and she wanted to make a movie about these Black actresses who basically made careers out of playing these types of roles in Hollywood movies and often were uncredited. Not always. There's really famous examples. For instance, the actress who won the first Black actress to ever win an Academy Award was the actress who was in Gone with the Wind, Hattie McDaniels. But for the most part, a lot of times those actresses would be uncredited in movies. So this was kind of the basis, the history behind Cheryl making this movie. And of course, she's also a Black lesbian in real life. And so the movie also is a romantic movie where she, has a relationship with a woman, and it's based on some real relationships she had in her life. So I fudged a little bit on the based on true story, but I feel like not exactly. So I was just shocked when you said you hadn't seen it. I was like, this is really a hallmark of Black independent cinema. So I wanted you to see the movie. I'm curious what you thought about it.
That's really funny because was watching it and I thought I never would have seen this if Angela hadn't made me see this because I just hadn't heard of it, and I don't know a whole lot about actual independent film the way you do. So I'm glad that you brought it to my attention, because that's not the kind of film I normally am exposed to on the daily. I think, what's interesting about the film is that it itself is a piece of Black history, right? Like you said, first Black lesbian directed film. Um, it was really interesting. I actually, I think the more interesting moments to me were the way it portrayed just, joyful lesbian dating and romance, like it just that's not something that I had seen in enough films, really. So I really appreciated that about it. When I got to the end and learned that the person she researched wasn't real, I was like, "Hey, Angela tricked me."
I did a little bit.
But yeah, no, I read about it more though, and like you said, it was based on a lot of reality. Um, it is, I've read a lot of narrative about just the whole idea that that was the only part that Black women could play in films back then was that Mammy character. And it was interesting to see this director look at that, but through at the time a more modern lens of what it was like being a Black lesbian trying to make film. So there was just a lot of interesting stuff about it, and I'm glad you made me watch it. It was good.
Well, we talked about also wanting to have a more joyful film, and this is
Yes,
one. It's
yes.
funny, it's romantic, it's sexy. There's an explicit sex scene in the movie, and that actually got it banned in some parts. So they made a
Oh,
big hoo-ha about it because the National Endowment for the Arts helped fund the movie. With its huge budget of $300,000, which is nothing for a film, even in the '80s. That was nothing. But then some Republicans, of course, were like, "Oh, we shouldn't be spending money on making movies like with lesbian sex in them." So, anyway, but of course now it's considered classic. Criterion Collection has put it out on Blu-ray, and
oh,
so time always weeds out good art. One of the things I like about it is the specificity of this world she's living in. Like there's not a lot of movies about the Black lesbian experience, particularly like in the way that she's showing it in her world. I was talking to my husband before we started taping, and he was talking about that he loves movies that are about like regional specificity or a specific type of, he was talking in specifically about the Portland jazz scene and how only people who were in that scene in the day really know all the ins and outs of the different people that were involved in building a jazz scene in Portland. And with this movie, it's the same type of thing, right? It's like a very specific cultural experience, a specific experience that only I feel like Cheryl Dunn is able to tell in this way. And she's telling her story through her lens, and I really appreciate that because we don't get, even now, there's not that many Black lesbian movies that come out. There are more than there used to be, but still, it's not a group that's represented very much in media or culture at all. So I think it's an important story to tell, but it's also just, it's one of the, we have some pretty heavy topics, so I thought it would be fun to throw in some romantic comedy. I also like the idea that it's playing with this idea of the fact that it's, her character's name is Cheryl. It's the same as her. So there's like a lot of parts of it that are truth. And I always like to say, like fiction can sometimes be, a more interesting way to portray. That's why we're not looking at real documentaries, right? It's like kind of a way to an entry point into these types of things. And the fact that she invented the character rather than doing a specific one in a way, I think makes it more interesting because it's kind of amalgamation of those type of actresses that would have been portraying these roles in the 20s and 30s. So yeah, I think, and I've seen a lot of movies of the 20s and 30s, so I've seen these types of characters portrayed a lot, and it is very interesting because you could see the actresses often trying to do as much as they can with what little they're given to do. So, for instance, I just saw a Marlene Dietrich movie not too long ago from the 30s where her maid is this Black woman, but she's always sassing back at Marlene Dietrich when she asks her something, and the actress throws in a lot of eye rolls and stuff. And I thought, oh, that's so great. She's just adding in, she's given like 10 minutes total in a hour and 40-minute movie to do her thing, but she's just throwing in a little attitude to just show, to give her characters something, right? So she's not just the typical maid character.
mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of those actresses did that in those movies. They try to throw in, they're actresses, so they want to make the character interesting, but they're also trying to push against, like, okay, yeah, I'm relegated to yet another maid role. That's all the only choice I have of what to play, but I'm gonna put something in there. So
yeah, definitely. I haven't seen a lot of those movies, so that's interesting to hear that perspective about it. And the first time that in this film that the main character talks about the person she's going to research, she describes her as just beautiful. And it was just interesting, almost like she kind of felt a little bit in love with that actress as well, just for her beauty and despite the roles she was given. And I thought it was really cool too. It was interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So good. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you liked it, and it was
Yeah.
okay that I cheated a little bit. So we'll go on to our next one, which I think you're introducing, which is actually a more of a true to life actual story.
Yes, yes. The second film we're going to talk about is called Loving. This came out in 2016. It was directed by Jeff Nichols. And this is based on a really famous Supreme Court case called Loving v. Virginia. This is the story of a couple, Richard and Mildred Loving, and they were arrested in the 1960s for their interracial marriage in Virginia because that was illegal there at the time. And eventually they connected with the ACLU and it started a legal battle that got all the way to the Supreme Court, who ultimately ruled that that they could be married, that interracial marriage ban was not okay. And I actually didn't know a lot about that specific case, to be honest. But it ended up becoming really important decades later when the Supreme Court was discussing gay marriage. And this case actually ended up being a foundational case to the Supreme Court saying that gay marriage was okay too, which I thought was kind of cool too, because it ended up not only helping interracial couples, but ultimately, eventually, LGBTQ couples. The case or the movie itself, I hadn't seen it, but I greatly enjoyed it. And I was a little worried before seeing it that it might be one of these white savior movies because like I said, it's the ACLU who ultimately took on their case and took it to the all the way to the Supreme Court, which of course, well, not surprisingly, was a bunch of white lawyers. Um, so I was a little worried, oh, is it going to be about how these white lawyers totally saved the day for this interracial couple? But it wasn't at all, actually. I feel like frequently in movies I see about cases or things like this, they often focus a lot on the case itself and on the how the drama of going to court and the drama of arguments and all that. But actually, that was completely tangential to the main story here, which really focused on the love and marriage between this couple and how they tried to make that happen despite living in a place where the white power or the white people in power there would not allow it to happen. And I really liked that. I liked that it focused a lot on their relationship and their love for each other. One other thing I just wanted to note, which I find interesting in the context of what we're talking about today, is that the wife, Mildred, she is the in the character, she's in the movie, she's the black part of the black and white couple. But she actually in real life was black and Native American,
Hmm.
and some of her family members have said that she actually identified more as Native American. So I was like, interesting that they turned her into a black, fully black identifying woman in the film. So I just had to put that out there that's an unfortunate thing. But I did like the movie overall and found it to be very touching. So that's my general thoughts. What did you
Yeah,
think?
I like the. I love. Yeah, we. So this movie was on my top 10 list of 2016.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so it made my top 10. Jeff Nichols is a great director. I was almost hesitant because he is a white director, and I think the only white director who made any of the movies we're talking about today. But he does a really good job in the movie. I think he's a really good, sensitive director, and I think that helps here. I think what really anchors the movie is the two central performances by Joel Edgerton um, as um, as the husband and Ruth Nega as the Mildred. And Mildred, is such a great character. She was nominated for an Oscar for her performance, I believe. She didn't win, but she's yeah, I think the fact that they left out the part that she's Native American too was unfortunate. The thing they did do really well is show some specificity about this town they're from, where we were talking in our last review about specificity. This specific town they were from in Virginia had been a long time very integrated town, as integrated as you could be in the South, I suppose, in that time. And they talk about that in the movie, the fact that the white people and the black people and the Native American people in that town were all, it was a very In fact, it was kind of the rest of the state really looked down on this town because of how integrated this town was. And that's why Joel Edgerton's character didn't really think twice about falling in love with a black woman because his family had a long history with her family. They were friends. So it was more about the community. And it also helps to explain why they didn't just like escape to the north. You know, they did do that, but like she horribly missed home. You know, her whole family's in Virginia, and like that was really hard for her to be away. She also didn't like city life, and they get into that. That's why they kept, because you kind of think at one point like, why do they keep going back and getting arrested in Virginia? Well, she missed her home and her family, her mother. You know, she had lived her whole life in this one community, and they both loved their community. They happened to be from this one town that was really actually fairly integrated compared to the rest of Virginia. Unfortunately, the rest of the state didn't look so kindly on that integration. So I loved that specificity because it also shows that we always tend to paint the South as like this broadly, horribly racist place in these times, even though the North was just as racist in a lot of ways. It was just racist in different ways, right? But there's often there's layers to that, and there's differences of depending on what community you're from, right? So I feel like that was really, I like that he showed that in the movie, and it isn't just about the court case, although the court case is very important, obviously.
Yeah, I agree. That was really a cool feature of the story too. And um that she also just didn't like raising her kids in the city. And it portrayed that really well too. Like they didn't have grass. They didn't have places to run around safely. Um and then they go back to the farm and it's like, oh, this is idyllic. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was interesting. It really showed a lot more about the need for them to fight this was not only because they just loved each other and wanted to be married, but they felt better. They wanted to stay in Virginia and raise a family there and, just live their lives.
yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was a good movie and I really enjoyed it. That's interesting. It was on your top 10 that year. I
Always ahead
hadn't.
of my time, Sarah. What can I say? It's a good advertisement for the folks out there. Watch Real Film Snobs, be ahead of your time, you know? So,
Yeah, there you go. I also read up a lot about it afterward, and the Mildred ended up living for a very long time, but stayed out of the limelight, like didn't really do interviews or anything. But I read that she did make an exception when that gay marriage ruling came down, and her case had been quoted a lot, and she did make a statement about how much she loved that, how she thought it was so important that anyone who wanted to marry could marry and that she, really supported and appreciated that. And I thought that was really sweet and cool for her to get
yeah.
to see that too.
And also very sweet. She lived her whole life in the house that he built for her, which is just, it's
Yes,
also a romance at heart, which I
it
love, and they're great
is.
performances. So Joel Edgerton up for probably going to be nominated for an Oscar this year for Train Dreams. As of taping, the nominations haven't come out yet, but we'll see. So yeah. Anyway, great
I
film
had
though.
never seen him before, so that's interesting. I'll have to check
Yeah,
that
no,
out
he's a
too.
great actor. Very subtle, which was, I think, a good choice for this movie because his character is he's a rough-hewn man. He's not a man who talks a lot, and that's so you need an actor who can really express a lot with his face because he doesn't
Yeah,
say much. And I liked, and his performance is quite good.
it
So
was really good for sure. Um, all right, I'm gonna take us to our next movie, which is Judas and the Black Messiah. This came out in 2021, a newer film, directed by Shaka King. And in this film, we've got Lakeith Stanfield playing a man named Bill O'Neill, who basically gets recruited by the FBI as part of a plea deal to infiltrate the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party and gather intelligence on their chairman, Fred Hampton, who's played by Daniel Kaluuya. Interestingly, both Stanfield and Kaluuya both got nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, although there's definitely arguments that they should have gotten for lead actor. But Daniel Kaluuya ultimately won the award in that category and well deserved. Both of them were amazing in this film. This is my favorite of the four we watched for today. I loved it when it came out. I still think about it a lot. just it's so well, the story's so well told, well directed, well acted, and it's just an interesting story itself. This whole FBI infiltrating the Black Panther Party, which um, for many years was kind of rumored and hit on, but like they, eventually actually proved no, they really were like embedding people in the Black Panther Party
Mm.
and trying to take them out from within. So this movie is it's a oh gosh, I don't even know it's hard to talk about because it's so much good about it, but like it's a very frustrating film in seeing what the FBI was doing to the Panther Party. It's a very cool film in that it shows you a lot more from the inside of what the Black Panthers were actually about and why. And Fred Hampton in particular is a very charismatic person in that story, and then ultimately what happens to him is tragic. So it's a really good film. It's one of these films that after I watched it, I like went to everybody I knew and was like, you need to see this film. So yeah, I'd love to hear more of what your thoughts are on this one.
Yeah, no, I definitely love this movie. It was also on my top 10 list in 2021. And central actors, Daniel and Lakeith had worked together before in Get Out, and here they are again in another film, very different roles. And as you said, it was a very big controversy. I still remember that Oscars because when the nominations came out, I thought, what? Supporting? Like, I mean, Lakeith's character in particular is in like the movie. I mean, he's the lead actor, I think, in the movie, but they didn't, for whatever reason. And this happens a lot with actors of color where they put them in supporting roles. Sometimes it's because they
Mhm.
think they have a better chance of winning, which in this case turned out to be true with Daniel, but still, it's a lead performance by because Lakeith
Mhm.
Stanfield's character, it's actually following him more as the FBI informant. But he starts to really admire Fred Hampton, and that's where it gets complicated, right? Because Fred
Yeah.
Hampton, he starts to see all this good that Black Panthers are doing in the community, and he's not there because he is for the FBI or against the Black Panthers. He's doing it to get his own sentence commuted, right? So he's there just to get
Mhm.
himself out of trouble. But he starts to see, oh, the Black Panthers are feeding kids in the community. They have all these community programs where they're doing things for the community, and it's not just this, horrible. The way it was portrayed in the media, of course, by the white media, was this horribly, violent organization, terrorist, if you will. And in fact, it was just like a good community organization in a lot of what they were doing. And he started to sympathize a lot more with Fred Hampton's philosophies and outlook. So it's a well directed, well acted film, and it looks terrific. So, and it's got a terrific soundtrack. So all of that also, artistically brings it up beyond like your standard biopic, I think. And the ending is horrific. I mean, it's absolutely horrific what happens. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really important movie. Everybody should see it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't say
Agreed.
that enough. So, yeah, definitely seek it out. I know it's on quite a few streaming services. It's right now on Netflix, but I think it's leaving Netflix soon. But I think it's also available on HBO Max and others. So definitely check this one out, I'd say.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you didn't see it in 2021, you can still see it. And I haven't seen Shaka King. I think it may have been his first film that he directed. And I don't know if he's done anything since then. So hopefully if he has that, I'm not aware. So, and I apologize, I didn't open up my letterbox to check right now.
I'll have to look that up because this thing is incredibly directed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's really well directed movie, and so great that he got the opportunity to direct this. So
Mhm.
okay, well we'll move on. We've only got a few minutes left for to the final pick. A little surprising for me, I picked a more mainstream film. I decided since I'm Watermelon Woman, me, I like my yin and yang. Just in case people want to pigeonhole me and think she only does art house black lesbian films. Well, here's the 6888 from 2024, really recent film directed by Tyler Perry. One of the reasons I wanted to pick a Tyler Perry movie because Tyler Perry gets a lot of crap. His movies are often not well reviewed. White people generally don't go see his movies, even though he's the most prolific American black filmmaker. Black audiences, especially in cities where there are a lot of black people, flock to his movies, have made him one of the most successful black artists in America. If you, the one time one of his movies showed in Salem, I went to see it, and there was like one other person in the audience. So that shows you. And it was one of his movies that did gangbusters business. So I wanted to have one of his movies in this show, but also because he is popular with black mainstream audiences in America. And I feel like there's a lot of snobbery towards Tyler Perry. I actually happen to also think this is one of his better movies. It's set during World War II. It's about a group of women who have signed up to serve their country, and they get tasked with clearing a 3-year backlog of undelivered mail. Basically, they get this task because no one else wants to do it. They're given this task. There's all this mail that's supposed to help with morale. You know, people aren't getting their letters to the soldiers in America, and the soldiers aren't getting their mail either. And so it's, you know, it's making, and so Eleanor Roosevelt is played by Susan Sarandon in the movie, which is a little kooky, but, you know, again, it's Tyler Perry. He likes to do his stuff. It tends to be melodramatic, so you definitely see that here. But she says, let's, you know, give these black women something to do. And so the reason I love this movie is Kerry Washington's performance as Captain Charity Adams. She is the captain of the troop. She is like a serious military woman. This is a woman not to be messed with. And she says, she is faced with, she has every obstacle known to man put in front of her. They try to make her life as difficult as possible so they don't get the job done. And she is determined to get the job done. And Kerry Washington, an actress who's well beloved in Hollywood, of course, is known for very famous TV shows and things, but doesn't get a chance in movies often to do lead roles. She's usually in a supporting role in movies. Finally gets a good meaty lead role to chew into, and I think she's terrific in this film.
Sorry.
You had
Yes.
a kiddo come into the role. It's like
I'm
having a cat, but you have a kiddo come
I'm
into the
so
room. So
sorry.
no, it's
Yeah,
fine.
it
You should have come
she
on
is
camera and said hi. We had a cute kid moment. So
she is the star, like, in a lot of ways. She really does a lot to carry this film, and I was always so enraptured when she was on screen. She really nails this role. This is the only Tyler Perry movie I've seen, so I fit everything you just said.
yeah, I don't. It's okay. I
Uh,
haven't seen many of his. I have seen more than one, but yeah.
I think there were definitely things about the way it was written that I thought were make could have been a little better.
It's not subtle. Tyler Perry is
No,
known
it's
for
not
subtlety.
subtle.
No.
It's a bit, yeah. But this is a really cool story, and I'm glad that he's telling it. And I'm always really glad to see these less famous stories that get when someone decides to tell them. I'm always
Yeah.
so happy to see that, because otherwise, maybe no one would have known about this amazing group of women and how important they were to the war effort. And I also liked that I had just never thought about how important the male of all things might be to both keeping the troops motivated and their families informed. And this movie really showed you how important something as simple as that could be. So I really enjoyed, I cried during this one a couple times, I'm not gonna lie. It was good. It's a really good story, and I'm glad he told it.
Yeah, Tyler Perry does that. You know, yeah, he's a cheese ball, but like his movies pick at your heartstrings, but he's telling important black stories. And the cool thing is some of these women are still alive. The main character, or one of the main characters, is still alive and living in a retirement home in the Phoenix area. And my parents watched this movie. My dad was in the Air Force, so he loved this movie. They're actually the reason we watched it. My dad just said, "You have to see this movie. It's, you know, the Air Force." And it turns out they got the main woman. She got on the front page of the paper at the Arizona Republic because they did a story about her after the movie came out, and then she got recognition in her local community, which I just thought was really
Oh,
cool.
that's
So
amazing. I love
yeah.
that. How
Yeah, and
cool.
also so cool that, you know, they're so old too. So yeah, still going. So it's just great to get that recognition. So I know we're out of time, but thank you so much for being on the show and reviewing 4 great films with me. Check out these movies and celebrate Black History Month year round, like the Real Film Snobs do, by watching important Black art. And as always, have a great day and great movies. Thanks.